Hey, it's Robert Clickybeard, the host of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. These podcasts challenge you to grow as a leader, to stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone, and to 10x your company. I really encourage you to enjoy the show, share it with teammates, fellow business owners, and subscribe. That helps us grow our community. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Will Richardson. Will, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So, Will, tell our audience a little bit about your background, where you're based, a little bit about your company.
Yeah, so managing director of Father Nature Landscapes. We are headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama. Have been here in Birmingham for about 16 years. We've had Father Nature Landscapes for about 19. I like to say that I'm a second generational leader, not connected by blood with our original founders and owners, but we've gotten to a point that they feel like brothers to me. And so Daniel and Andrew McCurry started Father Nature Landscapes here in Birmingham about 16 years ago. And then our first location was in Tacoma, Washington, that is still up and running now. And that launched about 19 years ago. And our design build landscape architecture firm, we do have a maintenance department as well that is primarily focused on serving the customers that we've handled their installations. Right now, we're currently about 70% focused on design build and then about 30% focused on maintenance. Like many other businesses, we see the value of having a strong maintenance department. So we'd love to see that get closer to about 50-50, but we've historically hung our hat on the design build side of the industry.
In terms of size, either revenue or numbers of employees?
Yeah, so we recently crossed the $10 million mark in revenue for our Birmingham location. The way that we operate our different locations is they all kind of operate as separate entities, and so as a whole, pretty significantly ahead of that number. Not as big as some in the industry, but have crossed that $10 million mark. Here in Birmingham, we've got about 65 employees, and then across all three locations, probably closer to about 80, 85.
That's awesome. Good sized company. Yeah, not many companies can surpass that $10 million mark. So you're obviously doing something right. And then what does it look like in the future? You're going to be, keep expanding different branches.
Yeah, so we're actually in the middle right now of investigating two additional locations. What we've found is one of the keys to success for us is being in proximity to our clients, and that not only is operationally saves on fuel and drive time and all those things, but it also we tend to have a very in-depth relationship with our clientele, and so being able to have a glass of wine at somebody's house after work and dream up the next project in their landscape is really important to us. And so we foresee continued expansion. That's going to be both in Alabama as well as across the Southeast. We're excited about cities like Nashville and Huntsville, as well as smaller communities that are around the lakes here in the Southeast. Most of that has been driven organically, not strategically. And so we use our data to understand where our clients having second homes at. When we get 3 calls about being at Lake Martin to do projects, we start considering, okay, do we open up a new location there? We have a desire right now to continue to kind of hang our hat on being a privately held business. So, have not engaged with any private equity or venture capital. And we think so much of our unique selling proposition, our kind of uniqueness about ourselves is that client experience piece. And we found right now that it may slow growth a little bit to keep that quality there, but we're okay with a slower growth trajectory if we can continue to serve clients in the way that we feel like is highest and best. We say here that our mission is to connect life and land, to encourage people to live outdoors. And in order to stay true to that, you've got to build spaces that are truly catered to each customer. And in order to do that, you've got to have both great relationships with the clients, but you also have to have experience folks that know more than just how to edge a bed line or how to install mulch and boxwoods. They have to know, is boxwoods the right fit for this garden? And we think about the entrance and the exit and how are people going to use this space? And if they've got young kids, how do we make sure they're seating that when popsicles drip, they're not dirtying up a really expensive outdoor couch? And so, yeah, we're so involved in that design process that we've continued to try to be really organic with our growth, but be okay putting a little break at some time to make sure we stay true to who we are.
You really touched on people quite a bit just during your last statement there, whether it be the clients, whether it be your internal team. And, as you know, part of the secrets of success is having the right people on board and developing your existing employees as well. How do you look at that in terms of either building the bench or attracting new talent, or looking at your existing team and how can I develop them into future leaders?
Yeah, so I think depending on the listener who's tuning in, there's seasons of business, and we've only experienced some of them because we're not to the scale that others are. But when you're trying to hit that first $1 million, or maybe you're trying to cross that $5 million mark, there's a lot of competency that is required from your employees. They have to understand how to operate equipment. They have to understand how to stay safe while they're doing it. They have to know have some horticulture knowledge, some plant knowledge. They have to understand how to tie rebar and how to pour a footing. That remains important indefinitely. Competency is of course there. But I think one of the things that I've experienced, and part of the reason that Daniel and Andrew brought me on, is that we wanted to be an organization that not only had great employees, but built great employees. And so we've invested a lot of time and energy, and even in our recruiting process, we spend a lot more time talking about culture, about ambition, about desire, about willingness to learn. I one of my favorite questions when I interview people is I'm known for asking somebody to walk me out to their car because I want to know, how do you keep your car? Like, you pull up today, does it smell? Is it dirty? And I'm not looking for it to be crystal clean all the time, but it tells me about you. It tells me about how you keep the things that you have. And we invest a lot of time and money in making sure that we're developing great people. And that not only has to do with their competency in the industry, but it has to do with those soft skills. And so we talk about things like, hey, there's a number of things that don't take any skill or any education to do. Showing up on time, having a good attitude. We tell our team often it's okay to have a bad hour, but don't have a bad day, because there's other people relying on your attitude when you're here. And so I think a lot of our focus really of the last 2.5 years has been on how do we take the really competent, skilled employees we have and ensure that they're passing along their industry knowledge, but then how do we also work on those soft skills? We want a client that may be spending significant money with us, hundreds of thousands of dollars on an installation, to feel like anybody on our crew they can walk out and have a conversation with. And that doesn't mean they'll have the answer, but that they feel like that person is not putting out a cigarette to have the conversation. We talk and stress a lot about we want to leave a job site cleaner than we showed up to it every day. And so that's making sure trash is put away, equipment is tucked away. We've trained our team to think about, hey, when Mr. Joe gets home this afternoon, where's his car going to be parked? And do we have we left gravel on the road, on his driveway? Is there dirt in the way? How do we make sure that we're pulling those things out of the way so that their experience in the construction process is fantastic, just like it'll be after the installation is done. And so I say all that because we understand and have a big focus on keeping the competency high. And so every week we do a Working Smarter that is a paid time. It's anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour that our team comes together and works on a specific skill, whether that's relearning how to shoot a transit, or it is talking about drainage issues. It's going over, hey, it's a certain time of the year, and this is what we need to be looking for as far as insects or issues with plant material. But then also during those Working Smarter, sometimes we talk about how to learn and how to ask good questions and how to deal with conflict and how to go, hey, before we just push somebody or drop a 4-letter word at them, how can we learn how to have healthy conflict together? And we found that not only it increases the bottom line for us and the business does better, but we're able to impact people's lives in a way that their home lives get better, their relationships outside of work get better. And we believe the kind of company we want to have long term, it's about transforming people's lives that work for us, not just giving them a place to clock in and clock out of.
You talked about people you're serving, talked about, communicating with their clients, but that's I often come across companies and I'll ask them, hey, how often do you talk to them, or maybe do surveys, and it's maybe once a year if you're lucky. I mean, what's that constant measure to get that instant feedback so you can adjust or pivot, whether it be as a company or maybe there's some individuals out there representing you that perhaps they're just not living up to those core values of your company?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I love the practicality of it. There's a couple things we do to make sure that this doesn't just sound good on a podcast, but we can actually execute on it. The first is that every quarter we pay out quarterly bonuses as long as the company is hitting revenue goals. And so the way that I tell our team that is my job is to protect payroll first, and I'm not going to pay out bonuses to then have layoffs 3 weeks later. But as long as we're hitting growth numbers and as long as we're hitting the revenues we need to, we pay out quarterly bonuses. And I let our team know, whether you have been on the team for 90 days and all you're doing is working a shovel, or you've been here for 12 years and you're overseeing millions of dollars of revenue, you determine what that bonus looks like. And so every role across the company has some sort of KPI that on a quarterly basis, they're able to feel my contribution, impact, good attitude, bad, is influencing the money that I'm able to make. And so for us, we kind of focus on a couple key areas. Some of them are more theoretical, like, hey, is this individual walking out core values? Are they representing us well? And that's subjective. It's hard to grade that, but we think we've got good managers, and I hold them accountable to make sure that they're not just throwing they were an 8 out of 10 this quarter. I can go, well,
Right.
why? Help me understand. But then we have really practical things like, hey, have we had any safety issues in the last quarter? Or are you driving safely? Are you using equipment safely? We talk about how are they contributing to revenue, and depending on their role, a project manager impacts revenue very differently than necessarily a laborer does. But that laborer does have the ability to help us come in under hours. And so for a team member on an installation crew or on a maintenance crew, we're going, hey, here were estimated hours on the jobs we had. Did we come under? Great. That's a win. That means that you're an 8, 9, 10 out of 10 for the quarter. Hey, we had multiple jobs that came in over hours. Well, that's the number that you get to control. For more of our upper management, we focus more on revenue, gross profit, those tight deals when in terms of revenue for bonuses. And then we also have some other key areas of, hey, what are you learning this quarter? Have you invested in additional learning, and did you follow through with the goals that you set there? And so that's kind of the main way that on a quarterly basis, we know we're giving some level of feedback. On top of that, we believe in a fast feedback culture. And so my team knows when we get out of the meeting, it's not uncommon for me to walk with somebody down the hall and go, hey, what went well and what didn't? What can I do better? Right. And hey, next time I need you to do this a little differently. And then you can't manage what you can't measure. And so we have a number of other metrics that are leading indicators to how that bonus is going to look at the end of the year. So there's 2 kind of key metrics we look at, both on the installation and the maintenance department, that we put in front of the team. One is an efficiency score. And so that is looking and comparing the amount of hours they were on the clock to the amount of hours we were able to bill. And then we also compare that number to estimated versus actuals. So what we found is if all we look at is estimated versus actuals, we might have somebody who comes in under hours, but they were still on the clock 15 hours more than the billable work they had. But if we only look at billable hours versus working hours, they'll blow all the hours on a job. And so every Friday morning, we have a 6:30 meeting company-wide where all of our foremen and up leaders come together, and we look at the previous week and say, hey, how do we do on estimated versus actual? And how do we do on our efficiency? And that's a really good leading indicator to know what the end of the quarter is going to look like. And it also allows us to not surprise our employees when bonuses either don't happen or don't look the way that they want to. It gives them continual feedback on a weekly basis.
Let's take a minute to thank our sponsors. Urcher is a life brand born from grit, founded by Zach Strausser. The mission is clear: to raise $1 million for the trades by supporting vocational training across North America. Urcher makes tough, smart gear built for landscaping and snow professionals who work hard outside every day in all conditions. Their apparel puts safety first, helps crews look sharp, and honors the pride in their craft. Every purchase has purpose, fueling training programs and building a resilient workforce. Urcher isn't just workwear, it's a culture of respect, resilience, and results. When you contact Urcher, mention Wilson 360 and Zach and his team will take well care of you.
No, I love that. And I love how you do it every Friday, because I've seen, again, some examples of a company doing that on a monthly basis, and I almost feel as though that's almost too late. If you're doing it just a shorter meeting but more frequently, then you can course correct along the way.
We used to do yearly evals, and we found it wasn't even worth doing them. Once a year, you might as well not say it, because either up the employee, because they're going to have to listen to 12 months of your aggravation that they haven't filled it, or you've forgotten everything. And so you're going to tell them you're doing a great job, and you forgot that, hey, in July, you were a nightmare, and we never got to talk through that together.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. And then the development of employees. I've had some conversations recently about, hey, we need to build the bench. We need to do some leadership development. And it's almost like an employee almost complaining that nothing's being handed to them, or you've got the other opposite attitude, which is they're actually out there trying to do their own thing. They're looking at either YouTube, they're doing the podcast, they're almost like carry your own bag type scenario.
Yeah.
Where have you seen the most success?
I'll take it back to recruiting first. One of the things that we started about 2 years ago is we still have our more traditional recruiting where somebody applies on the website, we walk through an interview process. But when we hit at least once a quarter, kind of a push to hire, whether it's going into a seasonal color installation in the fall, or it is just trying to staff up a new install team, we've been doing what's called an open house. And in that open house, we do anywhere from 4 to 5 assessments. And I tell every potential new hire, everybody that's coming in to interview, I say, I really don't care what you know. I care about how fast you show me you can learn. So if you tell me you know how to operate a skid steer, I'm going to make sure that when you say operate a skid steer and I say operate a skid steer, we're at the same standard here. When I give you feedback in that moment, I want to see how fast you can turn that around into something productive, whether it's asking a better question, course correcting in that moment. Those assessments are kind of different depending on the season we're coming into. Sometimes they have been, hey, we've got little printout cards of 12 steps to an install. Put them in the right order. In what order do we put irrigation in? When do we put softscapes in? When do we put hardscapes? When do we pour, footings, that sort of thing? We've had people plant, boxwoods in the front of the office and see how do they hold a shovel? Does it look like it's the first time they picked one up? And then also, do they know how much the root ball should still be showing once it's installed? And so on the hiring side, we try to set an expectation very clearly that our standards, they're high. And what we want to do is go, it's our job to give you the tools and resources in order to meet the standard, but we need to be honest and clear at where you're coming in at. And so we've had employees that have started with us that I would say were complete culture hires. It was just the positive, high energy, willing to learn guy that we said, we just want you on the team. I know you don't know anything. We can teach you. And then we have to follow through with that once the hiring is done to go, okay, now practically, how do I help you take those steps? And for us, we found that in the first 90 days, that's kind of the greatest time of impact. And so we do a 30, 60, and 90-day check-in with every new employee. And so they have anywhere from 5 to 10 key things that they need to be working on in that first 30 days, then that 60 days, then that 90. And what we found is about pretty quickly, are they willing to learn? Have they learned to ask good questions? And then we kind of let them loose after that and say, hey, your job is to stay productive and stay busy. We've got these efficiency metrics. We've got these actual versus estimated hours we look at. We're going to know if things aren't going well due to those metrics. And so then we're really handing that relationship off to the foreman to mentor, to coach, to instruct, but also to drive production.
No, I love that. And I love how you do the 30, 60, 90 days assessments. Do you find by doing that, those regular reviews and coming up with some type of you're almost talking like a career ladder where, hey, these are the skills you need to check off before you maybe move on to the next level. But does that help with creating that a little bit of that buffer when people are constantly asking for pay raises? Because if you have that training program in place rather than just coming to you randomly, hey, I'm leaving unless I get 50 cents more, You're able to point to the training program and hopefully be a buffer.
I would say it has done something very unique, which is it's put the pressure back on us instead of us putting the pressure on the employee. Right. And so the conversations are not, I've been here for 5 years, I deserve another $1 an hour. The conversation is, hey, over the last year, my team's estimated versus actual hours have dropped. Our efficiency has increased. I now know how to operate 3 new pieces of equipment. I now have 2 more people on my team. I would like to earn more money because I'm bringing more value. And I think what we've learned as an organization is the bottom line, typically when that more money has been asked for, the bottom line hasn't shown the value yet because it takes time. If somebody spends 6 to 12 months developing their skills, getting a little bit more efficient, a little bit more effective on hours, we may not feel that in the bottom line in year 1. And so we've had to not only make an investment in the time that we spend training people, but also rewarding that behavior. Now we have to inspect what we expect. So if somebody says, I learned these things, I'm going to confirm they actually learned them. It's brought both us as owners and executives at the company, as well as the employees to the same table and said, we have real negotiating power on both sides now to talk about this. And what we've seen is that our payroll has increased significantly, but that now watching over the last 2 years, as we've implemented some of these things, the bottom line is catching up. That as we invest in our people and do it intentionally and reward the behavior we want to see, the bottom line ends up working out pretty well for those of us that are incentivized or focused on those numbers.
And it's obviously not great seeing an increase in payroll, but you're beginning to see a little bit of a turnaround with your profit.
And my encouragement for anybody who's excited about this is just be aware people come to you more often because you're giving them the keys to control their destiny. And my only caution would be you have to back it up. And so when people come and they show that they've gotten that CDL or they've learned more they've learned instead of 30 plants they can now identify 100. Or for us, we ask all of our employees to learn 30 Spanish phrases if they're an English speaker, or 30 English phrases if they're a Spanish speaker. And then that number can go up to 50. And when they do that, I have to reward timely, and it has to be felt. And so it's important that if you set those standards, you back them up. Because the first time they hear, well, I did it. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that pay in 6 months. They go, well, then why am I going to keep working at getting better?
Yeah, I love those high level conversations you're having with your team members, your crew leaders, your employees, and talk about earned hours. And I mean, I assume there's an opportunity as they're getting more training, they're getting more confident, whether they're doing work or using machinery, potentially have that ability to add more work to the book or to their route. So
Yep.
again, that's a way, but you're right. That might take some time to do that, to figure things out.
It does. And that's why for our management, our project managers, our account managers, our property managers, they have an incentive on their gross revenues as well as their profit. Because what I found is if you lead a great team, I can continue to push more revenue your way. Because if your install crew can do $1 million a year, and then they get to a point that they can do $1.5 million, well, that didn't happen without everybody getting more skilled up. And so that's why some of our upper level management have incentives not only on profit, but on gross revenue, because we believe in order to carry more revenue, you're developing a team that can handle that.
And I suppose there's also a way in which you can, just constantly look at the routing, how can we improve things, probably get feedback from the crews as well. I love that idea.
Yeah, the other thing that I was thinking about when you're asking that question is I tell our team all the time, I don't want any Santa Clauses around here. And what we found is if we're going to take care of our team, we want to do it in a real way, whether that's in their paycheck, whether that's offering better benefits, whether it's more pay time off, whether it's fun activities at the office. What I don't want to do is have people that show up with Gatorades on a job site and say, hey, you're doing a great job, toss your Gatorade and walk out. It's like, no, I'd rather pay you $1 an hour more and you can buy your own Gatorade.
Yeah, there you go.
That speaks to the team a lot more. And I think that where I've seen other colleagues or other companies, and I've encouraged them to stray away from that. It feels fun in a moment to drop off a bag of hamburgers or Gatorade. And I think there's a time and a place for everything. But what we've found is that gratification leaves about the moment you drive off the property. It just doesn't mean much.
On that point, how do you truly know what will motivate them? Again, I do personality assessments, and often people are motivated by either money, job satisfaction, I don't know, just being right, opportunities ahead of them. How do you ask that question, or how do you get that feedback? Because you could be thinking, just giving them money is going to satisfy them all, but everybody gets motivated in different ways.
Yeah, no, we there's two things that come to mind when you ask that. The first is I have a question I love to ask anybody on our team, and I encourage our managers to ask their team, and it's, hey, there's 3 parts of your job. The first is what you get paid. The second is the number of hours you work. And the third is the responsibility you carry. You get to determine one of those. When I'm having any kind of negotiation with anybody, I said, tell me which one you want to control. Do you want to control how many hours you work? Do you want to control the responsibility or the title you have? Do you want to control the pay that you take home? And what I found is the way that they answer that question tells me a lot about their motivation. For a young father or a young mother, they may say, if I could get to where 40 hours was the most I had to work instead of 45 or 50, that would be instrumental for me. And so then we don't have a pay conversation. We have okay, so how do I get you off at lunch on Friday?
Right.
So that you have a half day with your family. And so that's been a great question. It also is a great negotiating tool, because if somebody goes, I want to make $80,000 a year, I go, great. There's people here who make $80,000 a year, but I get to control how much you work and what responsibility you have to carry in order to do that. And so that's been a great way to find those incentives. The second thing is that we've just surveyed our team once a year. I don't like surveys, but our team is big enough now that it's important to ask those questions. You can. And what we found is, to be totally vulnerable with you and all the listeners, we had about 40% of our employees say that they had looked at other job posting in the last 6 months. Didn't take a lot of action. We hadn't had a lot of turnover. So it didn't scare me in the sense of, okay, we're keeping them around for some reason. But then I dug in and I surveyed different types of employees, people who had been here for a different amount of time. I went and grabbed random folks and pulled them aside and just said, hey, this is what came back from the team. Would you advocate for the team? And tell me why you think it came back this way. And we just found phenomenal information.
I love that. I love that.
And I don't think you can beat having those conversations. I think surveys are really just to help force an in-person conversation. If you try to make decisions on them, there's too many gaps to be filled out there.
No, I love how you do that. And I don't think companies do that enough, just getting that true feedback. And, we're going into strategic planning season, typically serving employees, serving clients, throwing all that information into the mix and figuring out, well, what do I need to do to improve my client experience? What do I do to retain 90% of my employees. So those are all key information.
Well, and I know we're almost at time, but one of the things that we found out of that survey that I encourage everybody who gets to listen in is we heard from our employees. I'll use my own language instead of the kind I use, but they needed help protecting the dollars they earned. So better benefits so that I don't feel like I have to avoid the doctor because I can't afford the deductible for the year.
Right.
That's impactful. And so last year, I mean, when I say we increased our benefits, we blew them out of the water.
Wow. Okay.
And so everybody that works here at Father Nature gets a $25,000 life insurance policy. The company pays for that. We have 3 different offerings with health, dental, and vision, and we have an option that's 0 deductible. I wanted to make sure everybody at the company, now it's not cheap, and we pay a big portion of it. They have to pay a portion of it. But what I found is there's people who are willing to make less on their paycheck to have the peace of mind that their young family or their kids, they don't have to be scared of going to the doctor. And there's a number of other ways you can do that. But what we found is more than just sometimes giving another dollar, it's how do I protect that paycheck so that you're not having additional expenses outside of work that we can help mitigate for you.
Yeah, I love that. Nice job. Well, I know we're wrapping out of time here, but how do people get in hold of you? Maybe find out more about what you do within your company?
I would love to talk to anybody that wants to. I'm still figuring much of this out. The only thing I'll say is anybody who reaches out, I'll probably steal your ideas. So make sure you're willing to answer a bunch of questions if I've got them. But I would love to talk with anybody that wants to. You can find me at fathernaturelandscapes.com. And so if you go to our about section, you can find my email there. Would be more than happy to jump on a call, have a conversation. We believe that the industry is looking really bright. Love to talk to anybody that wants to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, really appreciate your time today. Great energy, great shares with all the things you do in your company. So nice job with what you're doing. And thank you for being a guest.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. I hope you're walking away with some great nuggets that you can immediately apply to your business, whether you're in leadership, operations, or you just want to show up every day with that Ironman mindset. Remember, growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens with intentional moves, bold conversations, and surround yourself with the right people. If you found value today, subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with others. And again, don't forget to check out wilson-360.com. We have digital courses from account management, operational excellence, leadership development, or some of the other coaching packages we offer. Anyway, huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you very much. And I'll leave with this. Have a pure, dead, brilliant day.